The first complete sentence I ever understood in Czech wasn't hello or thank you. It wasn't how are you or my name is Mark. No, the first full thought I could pluck out of the air, clear as a bell, was something I heard my fiancée say on the phone. She was in the kitchen, making coffee, and she thought I was in the living room with my headphones on, lost in some old rock and roll. But I was listening to my language lesson, and I heard her say it, her voice so relaxed, so matter of fact. She said, "Don't worry, the old man will be gone in a year or two, and the house will be all mine." The world just goes quiet in a moment like that. You can't hear the birds outside, you can't hear the hum of the refrigerator. You can't even hear your own heart beating, though you can feel it in your throat. The old man. She was talking about me. I was 62. And the house was the one I had just spent $250,000 on. My money, my life savings. $250,000, wired from Dayton, Ohio, to a bank account in her name because I was told it was the practical way, the efficient way. It was supposed to be our forever home. The place where I was finally going to feel at peace after my wife passed. The final chapter, you know. But standing there, with the Czech words for I am and you are still echoing in my headphones, I realized my final chapter had already been written for me. I was just the guy paying for it. I was the old man. This is the story of how I, a man who fixed complex machines for a living, managed to walk right into the simplest trap ever built, thinking it was paradise. To understand how I ended up in that kitchen, a ghost in my own life, you have to understand the man I was before I met her. Before Prague, you have to go back to Dayton, Ohio, to a quiet house that had gotten too big for one person. My wife, Susan, had been gone for 3 years. 38 years we were married. I'm an HVAC technician, or I was. For 35 years, I worked for the same company. I know how to read a wiring diagram. I understand systems. If something is broken, I can diagnose the problem, find the faulty part, and make it right. I spent my whole life making things work, but I couldn't fix the silence in that house. After Susan passed, my world just stopped. The kids were grown, living their own lives in different states, and I was proud of them. But here I was, retired, in a home we paid off together, and every room held a memory I couldn't touch. At my retirement party, my boss gave a speech. He said, "If you want it done right, you call Mark Peterson. The man is methodical. He's trustworthy." And I was. I'd built a life on being that guy. I planned everything. My finances were no different. After selling the house and cashing out some prudent investments, I had a nest egg of $450,000. Solid. Safe. Plus my pension from the company, another $2,200 a month, regular as clockwork. I wasn't a gambler. I was a man who checked the specs. And then, one Tuesday night, adrift in that quiet house, I stumbled onto a YouTube video. It was a travel vlog about Prague. The old buildings, the stone bridges, the people sitting in cafes. It looked like a fairy tale. But it was the numbers that got me. The cost of living was a fraction of what it was in Ohio. A man with my savings, my pension. He could live like a king there. The idea of a second chapter lodged itself in my mind. Not just an escape from the loneliness, but a place where I would be secure, respected. A place where my life's work would mean something again. That's when I met Lenka. I joined one of those international dating websites, more out of curiosity than anything else. She was 45, from Prague, an English tutor for children, she told me. Think about that. A job that requires patience, kindness, trust. Her photos showed a woman with a warm smile and kind eyes. Our first video call lasted 2 hours. She just listened. She asked me about Susan, about my job, about the things I'd built. She laughed at my dumb jokes. She made me feel interesting. For the first time in years, I felt like someone was actually seeing me, not just the old man rattling around in an empty house. She never once complained about her life. Instead, she painted this beautiful picture of what our life together could be. She didn't just validate my dream. She started coloring it in, making it feel like it was our dream all along. For 6 months, we talked every day, and in all that time, she never asked me for a single dollar. If she had, the story would have ended right there. But she was too smart for that. She wasn't selling a product. She was building my trust, and I was buying it, every last word. The 6 months of video calls felt more real to me than my own life in Dayton. Every morning, I'd wake up and the first thing I'd do was check for a message from her. Every night, we'd talk for hours. It wasn't just talk, it was a construction project. We were building our future, one conversation at a time. So when the time came, the decision to move felt less like a leap of faith and more like the final, logical step in a plan I'd been working on for half a year. But just as I was getting ready to book the flight, Lenka told me about a problem. A snag. Her little apartment in Prague, she explained, needed some serious repairs before she could put it on the market. The wiring was old, the plumbing was a mess. She was a tutor, she didn't have that kind of cash just sitting around. She sounded so frustrated, so disappointed. Not in me, but in the situation. It was an obstacle standing in the way of us. I didn't even hesitate. Of course I would help. This wasn't me sending money to a stranger. This was me investing in our future home, helping my partner get things in order so we could start our life together. $15,000. I went to the bank and wired it the next day. It felt good. It felt right. A demonstration of my commitment. When I finally landed in Prague, those first 3 months were like a dream I'd forgotten how to have. The loneliness that had been my constant companion for 3 years just evaporated. It was gone. Lenka was the perfect partner, the perfect guide. She showed me the city, held my hand walking across the Charles Bridge, ordered for me in restaurants. I was 62 years old, and I felt like a young man again. I felt seen. I remember sitting in a little cafe in Old Town Square, watching her laugh, and thinking to myself, Mark, you did it. You finally did it. You made the best decision of your life. It was during that honeymoon phase that she brought up the house. Not just a house, but our house. Our forever home. She'd found a place for sale in the countryside, a small, charming house near the historic town of Kutna-Hora. It was perfect, but there was another snag, another one of those practical problems. She sat me down and explained it to me with this very serious, caring look on her face. For me, a non-EU citizen, to buy property in the Czech Republic was a nightmare. It would take months, maybe a year. Lawyers, bureaucracy, endless paperwork. But for her, a Czech citizen, it was simple. A matter of weeks. Her proposal sounded so logical, so efficient. Let's put it in my name for now, she said. It's just faster. We'll get married. You'll get your residency, and we can transfer it to both our names. It will save us so much time and money on fees. To me, the man who spent his life finding the most efficient way to fix a broken system, it made perfect sense. It was a workaround. I was the practical man, and this was the practical solution. I wired the $250,000. With the house bought, Lenka was busier than ever, always at work or dealing with the renovations. I found myself alone a lot. The city was beautiful, but I couldn't speak the language. I couldn't even order a coffee without pointing and smiling like an idiot. I felt isolated, and I wanted to bridge that gap. I wanted to connect with her world, her culture. So, I decided to surprise her. For our 1-year anniversary, I was going to be conversational in Czech. I secretly signed up for an intensive online language course. Every day, while she was out, I put on my headphones and practiced for an hour. Jasem, I am. Taisa, you are. It was my secret project, my way of showing her how serious I was about our life together. But our life together started getting expensive. First, it was the unexpected property taxes from the house purchase. Then the renovation costs were much higher than the initial quote. Then we needed a more reliable car to drive out to the countryside. Each time, there was a story, a reason, a plausible explanation. And each time, I'd transfer the money. $5,000 here, $10,000 there. Over the next 6 months, it added up to another $50,000. A little alarm bell started to go off in the back of my head, a quiet little hum of anxiety. But I pushed it down. What was I going to do? To admit that I had a bad feeling now, after I'd moved my entire life, after I'd spent over $250,000? To face that possibility meant my entire dream was a fraud. It was easier to believe the stories. I was in the living room, headphones on, listening to my Czech lesson. I'd just gotten to a new level, understanding common phrases and conversational speed. I felt proud. Lenka came home, happy, humming a little tune. She kissed me on the cheek and went into the kitchen to make coffee. Then her phone rang. It was her sister. She started talking, her voice loud and casual, completely relaxed. She thought I was lost in my own world, just an old man listening to his music. But I wasn't. For the first time, the sounds coming out of her mouth weren't just noise. I started catching words, like distant radio signals suddenly coming into focus. I heard pennies, money. I heard stary, old. Then I heard dumb, the house. And then, clear and sharp as a crack in a frozen lake, the sentence came through. The sentence that changed everything. Nebejesi, tin starik budzie rock nebo dva pryc a dumb bit seli muj. Don't worry, the old man will be gone in a year or two, and the house will be all mine. The app in my headphones kept going. On J he is, on a J she is, but I couldn't hear it anymore. The only thing I could hear was the silence of a man who finally understood the wiring diagram and realized the entire system was designed to burn him out from the very beginning. When I stepped out of that airport in Prague, the air itself felt different. It was crisp, and it smelled of old stone and diesel, not like the damp, quiet air of my empty house in Dayton. For the first time in 3 years, the world seemed to be in color again. And there was Lenka. She looked even warmer, even more real than she had on the screen. She just smiled, took my bags as if it was the most natural thing in the world, and said, "Welcome home, Mark." Home. The word hit me right in the chest. I hadn't had a home since Susan was gone, just a house. Those first 3 months, they were the antidote to the poison of loneliness. The silence that had filled my life was replaced by the sound of trams rattling on the tracks, the murmur of a language I didn't understand but loved to hear, and Lenka's laugh. She took care of everything. She ordered our food. She bought our tickets for the symphony. She translated the little jokes the baker told us every morning. I wasn't a tourist. I was with her. And she made me feel visible. People would look at us, this happy couple, this vibrant, beautiful woman and this older American guy, and I could see them thinking, he must be somebody important. I remember one afternoon, sitting in a cafe in the old town square. The sun was warm on my face, and she was telling me a story about one of her students, her eyes sparkling. I just watched her, and I thought, Mark, you did it. After all of it, you finally did it. You made the best decision of your life. It was during that golden time, that perfect season, that she brought up the house. It wasn't a sudden thing. It grew out of our conversations, a natural next step. We were getting tired of the city noise, she said. She knew I loved the countryside back in Ohio. Then one evening, she showed me a listing on her computer, a small house, stone and wood, with a little garden. It was near a town called Kutna Ora, a place she described as a jewel, a piece of living history. She said, "This could be our forever place, Mark. Quiet, peaceful, ours." She wasn't selling me a house. She was showing me a picture of the rest of my life, and it was beautiful. But then came the snag, the practical problem. She sat me down on the couch one night, her expression full of concern. She'd been to a lawyer, she said, to ask about the process. And for me, a non-EU citizen, to buy property, well, it was a nightmare. That was the word she used. A nightmare of paperwork, of government offices, of waiting periods that could stretch for a year, maybe more. She laid out the bureaucracy like a faulty wiring diagram. It was complicated, expensive, and uncertain. I could feel my heart sinking. This perfect dream was about to get bogged down in red tape. Then she brightened, as if she'd just discovered the solution. "But for me," she said, her voice full of energy, "it is simple. As a Czech citizen, I can buy it next week. No waiting, no extra fees." She looked me right in the eye, her hand on my arm. "My love, let's just do it the easy way. Let's put it in my name for now. It is just a piece of paper. As soon as we are married, you will have your residency, and we will walk into the office and put your name on the title right next to mine. Why would we give all that money to lawyers and waste a whole year when we could be living in our home by the summer?" To me, the man who spent his whole life looking for the most efficient way to fix things, it wasn't just logical. It was brilliant. It was a clean, simple bypass of a broken system. I felt a surge of relief. Of course, this was the answer. It was a practical solution to a practical problem. The next day, I walked into an international bank in the center of Prague. I wasn't scared. I wasn't even nervous. I was a man building his future. When the teller asked me to confirm the amount, I said it out loud, clear and proud. $250,000. It felt solid. It felt real. It was the foundation for our forever home. I signed the papers, and I walked out of that bank into the sunshine, feeling like I had just fixed the last broken thing in my life for good. The house in the countryside, our forever home, became the center of our world, even before we'd set foot in it. Lenka was a whirlwind of activity, driving out to Kutna Ora, meeting with contractors, picking out paint colors. She was building our future, and I was the silent partner, the financial backbone. But my role started to feel distant. She was always busy, always had a meeting, an appointment, a problem to solve. I found myself alone in the Prague apartment for hours on end. The city was beautiful, but I was a stranger in it. I couldn't read the street signs. I couldn't order a coffee without feeling like a child, pointing at a picture. The loneliness I thought I'd escaped started to creep back in, a quiet chill in the middle of the day. I felt like I was living on the outside of her life, and I hated that feeling. I wanted in. I wanted to understand her world, her culture, her language. And I wanted to show her how serious I was, that I wasn't just some old American along for the ride. I wanted to surprise her. So I made a decision. For our 1-year anniversary, I was going to give her a gift she would never expect. I was going to speak her language. I secretly signed up for an intensive online Czech course. Every day, while she was out running errands for the house, I'd sit in the living room with my headphones on. It became my project, my mission. I felt that old familiar feeling, the one I used to get when I was handed a complex wiring diagram. I was methodical. I was determined. I practiced the strange sounds, the difficult grammar. Jasem, I am. Taisai, you are. My Jime, we are. Each phrase I mastered felt like a brick I was laying in the foundation of our real life together. But the foundation of that life was getting more and more expensive. The house wasn't a simple purchase. It was a hungry mouth that always needed feeding. First, it was the unexpected property transfer taxes, a bill that Lenka said had come out of nowhere. It was a few $1,000s. I didn't question it. Then came the renovations. The initial quotes, she explained with a frustrated sigh, were far too low. The contractor had found structural issues. The wiring was older than they thought. It needed a new roof. It was always something plausible, always a problem that needed a solution, and the solution was always more money. Another $10,000 here. $5,000 there for a deposit on materials. Then we needed a car. My American Ford wasn't practical for the narrow European roads, and her little Skoda was on its last legs. To get to the countryside, to our house, she said, we need something reliable, something safe. So we bought a newer car. More money transferred from my dwindling account back in Ohio. In about 6 months, the little expenses, the taxes, the car, the endless renovations, it added up to $50,000. On top of the $250,000 for the house. On top of the $15,000 for her apartment. It was a slow bleed, a steady drain. And a little alarm bell, the one a good technician always pays attention to, started to ring in the back of my mind. A quiet hum. Is this right? Is this normal? But I silenced it. I had to, because to listen to that bell, to really listen to it, would mean admitting that my entire new life, my entire dream, this perfect second chapter one had bet everything on was a lie. I was too far in. I had moved my whole life across an ocean. I couldn't be wrong. I was Mark Peterson. I fixed problems. I didn't create them. I was in the living room. It was a Tuesday, just after lunch. I had my headphones on, my laptop open. My Czech course told me I had just reached a new level of fluency. I could understand common conversational phrases now. I felt a surge of pride. I was doing it. I was closing the gap between us. I was just practicing the phrase rozumím, I understand, when Lenka came home. She was humming, happy. She'd just come from a meeting about the kitchen cabinets, she said. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, told me she was going to make some coffee, and went into the kitchen. The apartment was small. The kitchen was just a few feet away. Then her phone rang. I could hear the tinny ringtone even through my headphones. I saw her pick it up. It was her sister, I could tell by her tone. She started talking, and her voice was different. Not the warm, careful voice she used with me. It was loud, dismissive, casual. She wasn't trying to be quiet. Why would she? She just saw the old man in the chair, lost in his music, headphones on, a world away. But I wasn't. For the first time, the sounds coming from her mouth weren't just noise. My brain, trained by hundreds of hours of secret practice, started to work. It started to pick out words, like plucking them out of the air. I heard pennies, money, an easy one. I heard stary, old, a new word, but I knew it. And then I heard dumb, the house. My heart started to beat a little faster. My palms felt damp. I turned the volume down on my headphones, but kept them on, my eyes fixed on a page in a book I wasn't reading. And then the sentence came. It wasn't shouted, it wasn't whispered. It was just said. A simple, clear, matter-of-fact statement from one sister to another. A piece of business. Nebejesi, ten starik budzie rock nebo dva pryc adam bietseli much. The app in my headphones was silent. The world was silent. But I heard every word as if she'd leaned over and screamed it into my ear. Don't worry, the old man will be gone in a year or two, and the house will be all mine. Gone. The old man. The house will be all mine. I just sat there, frozen. The wiring diagram was finally complete. Every connection, every transfer, every plausible story, every warm smile. It all snapped into place. It wasn't a partnership. It was an extraction. It wasn't a dream. It was a machine, and I was the part being stripped for cash. And I finally understood. Rozumiem. For a moment, there was no sound at all. Not the traffic from the street below. Not the hum of the refrigerator. Not the cheerful female voice from my language app, still whispering in my ears. There was only the sentence, hanging in the air of the kitchen. A sentence I wasn't supposed to understand. A sentence that was for someone else. But it was for me. It was all for me. Nebejesi, ten starik budzie rock nebo dva pryc adam bietseli much. Don't worry. The old man will be gone in a year or two, and the house will be all mine. My blood went cold. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. She laughed at something her sister said on the other end of the line, and then she hung up. I heard her footsteps on the hardwood floor, coming back towards the living room. Coming back to me. The old man. She walked in, smiling. The same easy, confident smile she'd given me when she met me at the airport. The same smile I saw when I told the bank teller to wire $250,000 to her account. This time, I saw it for what it was. A tool. A piece of equipment. I pulled the headphones off. My ears were ringing. Is everything okay, my love? She asked. Her voice was a perfect instrument of concern. I just looked at her. Her kind eyes. Her warm smile. The woman who had saved me from loneliness. The woman who had built me a beautiful cage and convinced me it was a kingdom. Who was on the phone? I asked. My own voice felt like it was coming from a long way away. Oh, just my sister, she said, waving her hand. The usual family drama. Nothing for you to worry about. Right, I said. I stood up. My knees felt weak. I walked to the window and stared down at the street. A tram rattled by. People were going home, living their lives. My life, the one I had built here, had just been demolished. My Czech is improving, I said, my back still to her. I could feel her stillness. The air in the room had changed. It was heavy now. That's wonderful, Mark, she said. Her voice was different. A little thinner. A little sharper. I turned around and faced her. I learned a new word, I said. My voice was steady. Level. Starik. The old man. Her face didn't fall. It didn't register shock. It just cleared. The warmth evaporated. The concern vanished. The smile was gone. What was left was cold, hard, and calculating. There was no apology in her eyes. There was no surprise. There was just the silent, brutal acknowledgement that the game was over. And I knew. In that single, silent moment, I saw it all. The $15,000 for the apartment. The $250,000 for the house. The $50,000 in taxes and cars and phantom renovations. $315,000. It wasn't a series of unfortunate events. It was a plan. A methodical, patient, perfectly executed plan. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. What was the point? You can't fix something that was never broken. The system had worked perfectly. I just finally understood the wiring diagram. I'm leaving, I said. It was the only thing left. The only move I had. I walked past her, into the bedroom. I pulled my old suitcase out of the closet, the one I'd brought from Dayton. I started putting my clothes into it. Just a few shirts, a couple of pairs of pants. The rest of the things in the closet, the new coat, the expensive shoes, they weren't mine. They belonged to the old man, and he was already gone. And so I came back. Not to the big house Susan and I had shared. I'd sold that to fund my dream. I came back to a small, one-bedroom apartment on the west side of Dayton. It's sparsely furnished. I had to take a part-time job as a consultant for my old company, just to make sure my pension covers the bills. The truth is, I lost $315,000. All of it. The house, the renovations, the car, the apartment repairs. It's all gone. People ask me if I hate her. And And the honest answer is no. Hate is an energy I can't afford. I'm telling you this story for one reason, and one reason only, so it doesn't happen to you. And that brings me to the lessons, the things I had to learn in the most expensive way possible. First, and I don't care if it's your fiancé, your best friend, or your own mother, you never, ever put an asset in someone else's name in a foreign country. End of story. I was a practical man, and putting that house in her name seemed like a practical solution to a bureaucratic problem. That practical solution cost me $250,000. If the law says you can't buy it, you walk away. The money you think you're saving on lawyers is nothing compared to the price of losing everything. Second, your loneliness is a weapon that can be used against you. Scammers can smell it from 1,000 miles away. I was so empty after Susan died, and Lenka came along and seemed to fill that void perfectly. That feeling, that incredible relief of not being alone anymore, that's a vulnerability. It's a blind spot. If you're feeling empty and someone comes along who seems to be the perfect answer to your prayers, you have to stop and be extra suspicious. That feeling of perfection is a red flag, not a green light. Third, learn the language. It's not a romantic gesture. It's not a hobby. It's your only shield. I thought I was learning Czech to surprise her, to show her I was committed. But the real reason to learn is to protect yourself. It's your only way of knowing what's really going on around you. It's your only window into the truth. The only reason I'm not still in that apartment, sending her my pension checks for some new, invented crisis, is because I understood a single sentence that I wasn't supposed to. I'm not telling you this so you'll give up on finding happiness. I'm telling you this so you don't confuse a business transaction for a loving relationship. If you're an older guy thinking of moving your life savings overseas for a woman you met online, you have to operate like she's trying to take everything. If she's honest, she'll understand. If she's not, she'll get defensive. And that's your answer. Mark's story is one of thousands. We've compiled other cautionary tales from men who learned these lessons the hard way. Click on this playlist right here. Watching it might be the most important financial decision you ever make.